Well, that was the scene in one area of Washington last night. Protesters yelling at federal officers at a checkpoint at a popular nightlife destination in the district. According to an account of the Washington Post, a number of people were detained with a woman handcuffed while the crowd booed and yelled at officers to, quote, read the Constitution. Just a couple blocks away, a man was arrested after first shouting obscenities at officers and then throwing a sandwich at one. Well, the alleged assailant, a man named Sean Charles Dunn, was a Justice Department employee. He's now been fired, and he's also been charged with a felony, something former Fox News anchor and now U.S. Attorney for the district, Jeanine Pirro, announced on social media.
He thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony. So there, stick your Subway sandwich somewhere else.
It's the attorney for the district. The president also weighed in not on the sandwich, but on the larger question of taking federal law enforcement officers away from their regular jobs and putting them on the streets.
Are you concerned at all that some federal officers that are helping D.C. police might be being pulled away from other high priority assignments?
Like what? Like what?
Terrorism, for example.
Oh, really? Terrorism? They'll stop terrorism as part of what they're doing right now. You know, in Washington, D.C., they have thousands of police. They have a lot of police, but the police weren't allowed to do their job. We have a lot of great ones, and you have some that weren't so good, to be honest, but they weren't allowed to do their job. But now they are allowed to do their job.
Joining us now is former D.C. Police Chief Charles Ramsey, who's now CNN senior law enforcement analyst. Do you see this increase in National Guard troops as helpful, as beneficial? Concerns? What do you think is working?
You know, when this was first announced, of course, I was very skeptical, and I'm still a little skeptical that the main motivation is to make D.C. a safer place. But having said that, the additional personnel, particularly the federal law enforcement, it can be used to actually make a difference in many of these neighborhoods. Now, I'm not a big fan of the National Guard being used in that capacity. However, right now they're in a support role, and I'm okay with that. But it has to be done in coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department, with the city, and they've got to target specific areas of the city that are still very challenged in terms of crime. You can never drive crime down low enough. You have to keep pushing and pushing, because for the people who live in these challenged areas, we can talk about crime stats being down all we want. As far as they're concerned, there's been no difference. So it's the perception of crime as well as the reality that we have to deal with.
Well, let's talk about the reality, because the crime stats, which have been cited by a number of officials, are now being questioned with the police union in D.C. The president was asked about recent crime statistics in the Oval Office today, and he refers to that. I just want to play part of his answer.
So we will have crime under control very shortly in D.C., but they're record numbers. And sadly, what I guess the mayor did, but whoever it was, they asked the numbers to be fudged so that it would show less crime than the fact. The fact is, it's worse than it's ever been. They are giving us phony crime stats, just like they gave other stats in the financial world, but they're phony crime stats. And Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will soon be at its best point. You're going to have a very safe, you're going to have a crime-free city. I mean, I say that. You're going to have virtually a crime-free city.
I mean, does police leadership cook the books? It happened in the Vietnam War, in the military with the body count. It's happened, it happens in some places.
You know, when I was a young cop in Chicago back in the 1970s, there was a huge scandal around cooking the books or changing crime stats. I'm not aware of anything like that going on in D.C. In fact, the union president who said that, I don't believe he's produced a bit of evidence to show that that in fact is the case. I mean, if crime is down, crime is down. But again, it doesn't get around the fact that you can always drive it down further. And that's really what you need to be able to do. The biggest problem I have with this, because you can have this large surge of personnel in the district, you'll suppress crime for a period of time. But what's the plan? What's the long-term strategy for being able to maintain it, to keep it quiet, to keep it peaceful and safe? I haven't heard anybody talk about that at all. And that's what they need to be thinking about. This many people cannot stay in the district for very long. They just can't. You've got to be able to move on and do your job, do your other job, rather.
What's going on here in Washington, D.C. I mean, we've seen there were National Guard patrols in Georgetown. There was a checkpoint set up in a popular nightlife district. I used to live around the corner from 14th and W Northwest. We have not seen the presence be sort of all across the city from what we can tell, but rather in these isolated places. What do you think the ultimate upshot of all of this is, this display from the president?
That remains to be seen, and whether there's any, I mean, crime has been coming down in Washington, still too high. That's true in most American cities, coming down. And frankly, one homicide is one homicide too much. So, you know, we'll see if there's actually any real effect. It's not really clear what they're doing, but the precedent of declaring emergencies and saying, you know, Washington is a hellscape, and therefore I am going to send military. And we saw it in other places. We saw it in L.A., you know, where Marines sat around for several weeks, not doing a heck of a lot, but the show of force was clear. And you don't want to normalize, you know, casual declarations of independence and then authorization of military in the street, because then you get to the point where you see, you know, folks showing up at political rallies and you know, there's a reason why we keep the military separate from domestic activities. So, you know, there's a concern about that, but I don't know what I'm hoping, look, I hope the upshot is somehow this improves things. But I have, you know, some question as to whether that's the fundamental objective.
It won't, and that's not the intent. I mean, look, let's be extremely honest about where we are with crime in this country. If you look in cities like Little Rock, Arkansas, if you look in cities like Atlanta, Georgia, if you look in cities like Birmingham, Alabama, where you have mayors such as Frank Scott, and you have mayors such as Randall Woofin, or you have Atlanta, Georgia, Andre Dickens, those crime rates have gone down. Muriel Bowser, the crime rate has gone down in D.C. In fact, go to Baltimore.
She has been mayor for a long time, and the crime rate went way up during the pandemic.
But you know who I'm quoting? Kash Patel, the FBI director. But even more important,
go up to come down,
but listen, even more importantly than all of that, let's go to Baltimore, who was they Republicans beat Baltimore senseless. The crime rate under Mayor Brandon Scott is the lowest that has been in 50 years, Casey. I'm not making that up. And the way that he did it, and this is my problem with Republicans. This is my problems with the fact that I know that this is gamesmanship. The way that he did it was invest in local communities. The way that he did it was making sure that he had after-school programs, that kids didn't go hungry, that he invested in public school education, those type of things. The greatest mayor in the history of Washington, D.C., Marion Barry. What did he do? He had a summer work program, so teens had things to do. That is the way that you cut crime. This showmanship is exactly what it is. And to David's point, as someone whose father was actually shot on a night where law enforcement interacted, and they shouldn't, with young people in February 8th of 1968, this is a recipe for disaster. My family knows firsthand what happens when you throw the military or the state police, people who are not used to policing communities, out there, and they interact with people on this level. And so, look, it's politics, but call it that. This is not about lowering crime rates.
I don't know how many people they arrested last night, but through Tuesday, and since August the 7th, they had arrested over 100 people, 43 on Tuesday night. They've gotten several illegal guns off the street. It's not a display. It's a real thing, because there are real criminals and real violent people in Washington, D.C. Anyone who lives here or visits here knows that.
Okay.
Everybody knows it's not safe. And more eyes and ears. That kid from the White House that got attacked the other day, there were two cops that just happened to be nearby. Had they not been sitting there, maybe he doesn't walk away from getting jumped by 10 people. And more eyes and ears.
I believe he was assaulted by a 15-year-old girl.
And I've lived here for 20 years too. No doubt. And you know, to David's point, any homicide, any crime is a serious one, and we should take it seriously. But we have to acknowledge, and I think we all have to acknowledge, that there are politics behind all of this. And I'll just put a trivia question out to everyone at the table. Chime in if you know the answer. Of cities with a population of at least 100,000, right? Which one in America has the highest rate of crimes against individuals? Where is it?
It's probably in Arkansas
It's
or
in
Alabama.
Memphis,
I was gonna say it's
Tennessee.
Memphis,
It's Memphis, Tennessee. Number 2,
Close.
Cleveland, Ohio. Number 3, Toledo, Ohio. Number 4,
Well-
as you said, Little Rock, Arkansas. What do they all have in common? They're all in red states, and we're not hearing about them.
Who are the mayors?
Right, but
Has the president
Well, let me
made,
ask you,
no,
Scott.
no. Has the president made a push to federalize
the
law enforcement in
highest-
those
Scott,
places?
Scott,
Well, it's
If-
also not legal
let me
the
ask
way
you
it
a
is in
question,
DC.
though.
Sure, but if this were
You're-
were actually something that were not a political statement against,
trying to get out, I know.
No. Go ahead, David.
No,
you
I
hear what
mean-
I'm saying though.
I mean, your hometown of Louisville,
Also a Democrat mayor and a Democrat governor. Go ahead.
your hometown of Louisville has comparable murder rates and property. So you're saying it's all about the Democratic mayor and Democratic. Would you advise the president to describe Louisville as he describes Washington? Would you support sending the military into Louisville?
But I mean, like,
well,
but the-
I
Hold
want to
on.
hear.
Let Scott answer.
Well, Louisville and the District of Columbia are two different places because the Constitution designates.
the president says he
Yeah.
can send them into
Scott,
other
but
You're
cities
exactly
as
right.
well.
But you're exactly right. Louisville is a violent place. We had kids shot at a bus stop. We have an epidemic of violence in Louisville, and it has been under Democratic control for decades. And my state's been under
And I
Democratic governor
we should
for the last 2
100%
terms.
agree with
but
that.
that's let's
hold
look
on,
at what
hold on.
let's
Because
look
we
at
have
what
soft
works,
on-crime
though.
policies.
We are up way against a break. So
But
I'm gonna, okay,
absolutely,
fast forward.
absolutely true. But you can't deny that it's politically advantageous
I agree.
for the mayor
Can I
to
agree?
go after the mayors of
Can I agree with you on
Philadelphia and
politics?
Washington.
It's good politics
Yeah.
to reduce crime.
Agreed.
That's why Trump is reducing crime, and I don't understand why Democrats want to keep it the
Attacking
same.
the mayors
I mean,
of blue cities and blue states, and it's a winner for him, and you
And
know that.
we are going to have to leave it there.